Hello, everybody, and welcome to Horcrux Redux, the introduction and debut of Joshua Dickson, who I know as the email guy from the HIVEMIND, also responsible for bringing me the pale fire. And so let's let him introduce himself to you, and we're going to talk about the Horcrux Horchrist live stream we did the other day, plus whatever else we talk about. Joshua, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on.
All right, here's full screen to introduce yourself. Ready, set.
Very good. Well, this is not part of an introduction, but I'm glad that book arrived. That's my favorite work of fiction. That's a lot of people's favorite work of fiction. I'm glad you have it.
Yes, me too. It's nice to have something in my hands to read instead of off a screen for a change.
Yeah, that can be nice for a lot of reasons. That book is. I know you want me to introduce myself. That book is. It's at the same time. It's a poem. I've had like literature professors tell me it's not a poem or doesn't. So I guess I don't understand poetry because it's like forget Robert Frost. Like it's up there just as a poem as far as I can tell. And then it's also a murder mystery and a lot of other things too. Hello, Josh.
No. Ready? One,
Yes.
two. All right, this is Josh, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Josh here. By introduction, probably similar, I think similar to everybody that I've heard on the channel. Came in via watching Jordan Peterson. I think my next leap after that was someone doing commentary on Jordan Peterson. Good commentary, I thought. That was Pastor Paul Vanderklay. I saw Paul Vanderklay interview you, Griz, and I've been watching you ever since with great interest. Maybe I'll stop there. I don't know how to do it.
That's good. You fell into through Peterson to Vanderklay, and then he pointed you to me, and for some reason you saw it and stayed around. That's mystery enough. Maybe it was for the savings throws, which I'm going to give everybody now against at least my BS for the rest of the stream. You get to choose between survival, social, wisdom, or heart. If it's over 10, you take half damage. Under 10, you take full damage. Josh, what you going with?
I'm going to try wisdom today.
Wisdom today. And everybody else, choose! Survivalist. That is a 6 for you. Socialist. Holy smokes, that's 2 9s worth of 18. You're going to be fine. Wisdom, folks, like Josh here. That's a 3. But we'll do what we can. The mind control is really good for you normally. Heart, folks, disciples, 12, and same for the Indigo kids, and that you didn't get a savings throw during the live stream today, so take that one. And now, Horcrux Redux. You gave me a really good, insightful email after that live stream the other day, and I thought maybe we'd talk about that. Do you want to just talk about it, or do you want me to read from what you wrote?
I love the approach of see what happens. If it's okay, let me talk just for a few seconds about it. And
Yeah,
it's your show. You know what to do. I love that movie. I love Tombstone. I also love the Harry Potter series. So that, I guess, 2 points of resonance immediately with me. I have 2 daughters. They're grown-ups now, but I read the Harry Potter series out loud, also the Narnia series, but Harry Potter all the way through. So when it got darker near the end, I had to read it to myself before I read it to them because they were little. That's what we do with kids. Tombstone, I was late to Tombstone. So, I mean, I'll turn 50 this year. I only happened upon Tombstone 10 years ago. My good friend, Chris, I hadn't seen it. I was going through a little bit of a rough patch at the time, and he brought it to me as an antidote for that. He's like, look at what these guys are going through. Like, whatever drama you're going through, plus people are trying to kill them. But yeah, maybe I'll just stop there. Love that movie. And then, so it's like, and Griz is somehow conflating the two, and that set off something else. So yeah, I had to nosh on that a little bit.
Well, I'll say your friend is a true friend. And he's like,
That's true.
look at what your genes have been through. All of your problems now. Look at this. Look at what our people have been through. That's great. For me, like, I believe that there's this thing I consider it archetypal resonance, especially with how many stories we eat. But like certain characters will have more salience to us than others, and I think that's because they're resonant with how we view ourselves. And Doc Holliday in that was one, and I think that's probably going to be true of a lot of the generation that was just crafted the way we were toward nihilistic hedonism. Like, he got to be the nihilistic hedon, but also the true friend and the skill shot and the huckleberry, or if you will.
Yeah.
So they have him there cast as that archetype, and then juxtaposed with him is Johnny Ringo.
Yes.
And they get to that point in the film where like Wyatt is asking Doc what the difference is, and he says, like, what's with a man like Johnny Ringo? And he says that he's getting revenge for being born.
Yeah.
And so that's, to me, the mark of Cain. Also, that ties to, that's like, I make these sacrifices and they're not good enough, and that points eventually towards revenge.
How quickly did you get to the? I guess that's not my real question. I'm struggling with that mark of it's the mark of Cain because it's vengeance. Okay, I got there. Yep. Yeah. But, did that hit you right away when you saw the movie, or reflecting later?
I think what resonated, like, at the time, because in the 90s I was going through the teenage thing, is like how much Holiday valued friendship was the resonant part with me. And that's also where the Horcrux and the Horchrist thing play in. Because, okay, so in the Harry Potter series, for anybody who doesn't know, the gist of what happened is there's this huge evil force named He Who Shall Not Be Named. And in order to secure his own immortality, he shatters his soul into these pieces called Horcruxes. And he puts them in things so that when his physical form is destroyed, they can come together and reform through the Horcruxes. Now, so for me, it's a shattered it's a piece of your soul. And I was also tying it to the Horus Isis Set myth, where that little piece is the eye of Horus that gets restored by Horus to Osiris after the battle was set. And how just having this little piece inside us can change, like that keeping our eye on the cross versus our eye on Christ. That little change in view is a fragment. It's just a little fragment of it, but it's like there was this talk that Petkow had with Ivan Engel, I think, and Ivan talks about how they look. These two Mandelas look super similar, but then one just doesn't have, like, the little piece of Christ is like missing from one, and you can't tell unless you look real close.
Who was he talking about? He was talking about Ringo and Holiday, or he was talking
about...
No,
that was a completely different thing. But to me, it maps to the comparison between the Horcrux and the Horchrist. It's like they look almost the same, but there's this tiny little piece of difference. And in Ringo and Doc, there's a couple of differences. Like, they establish they're the same through they're an educated man and their deadliest pistols.
It's Latin, darling.
But Ringo has turned his revenge outward, and Doc has turned it inward.
Yeah, in the opening scene, they destroy a wedding at a
brutally destroy a wedding.
Shoots the priest, to the dismay of even the other cowboys who were not nice guys.
During which I think Ringo quotes the Bible to make it even more sacrilegious.
Oh my!
or it's just some Latin. I don't know. I don't remember. But the point is they have that juxtaposition there, and then they show that the difference is the way Doc is. Like, not only like he's turned his inward, but he has that little piece, that little fragment view of friendship, like, which is to me love, which is Christ. So it's a whore Christ that Doc has that Ringo doesn't.
When I heard your response in email, and when I hear you saying this right now, this reminds me, I've heard you talk about Dr. Vervaeke has this concept of reciprocal narrowing. Maybe, I don't know if it's his concept, but then I've heard you talk about that. I think you said something like everything loves without exception, but there's a choice about whether you can extend that love or reciprocally narrow it only to yourself. And that presents something like what we call, somebody said, is that narcissism? And then you said something like, kind of close enough to get a foothold on the idea. But is this tracking anything?
Yeah. It's similar. Like, it in the way you said that, that's the same thing. It's the same way I'm using that. Holiday turned his revenge against existence on his own body, and like through his hedonism, and Ringo turned his outward through his violence, and like, that manifestation of revenge. They were both taking revenge on existence, and Holiday had narrowed it onto himself, the way that I mean that, like, the fountain of love one has can be narrowed onto oneself, and that manifests in a pursuit of power or whatever. But it's still love, but it's just you turn it to yourself, rather than outward toward the world.
Yeah, it's still the elemental motive force.
Right, yeah, like we're naturally fountains of love. So it's gonna be there, and what one's mind and will can do with that, and how it shapes one's character, is a fun and exciting exploration we all get to go through together as humans.
Yeah, you're gonna find fountains in that paperback book nearby. That's
good.
When you saw that movie, the scene that you first chose to show, which is at the table. I don't remember what game they're playing, but it's at a gambling table. It's a card game table. That scene, Johnny Ringo is provoking Doc Holliday to fight. Kind of. He's just kind of bullying him. Okay, great.
Let's see. It takes me a while to get to the open. What do we got? What's it look like in StreamYard? Okay. We'll do this.
So this is their first move.
He's drunk.
I didn't run it very long. There's so many copyright concerns.
I can
destructive forces living in an alien relationship to the pristine and pure natural world.
Preach.
I don't know. Reminds me of me.
That there, even that, right, is enough to let you know that, like, the reason I hate that guy is because I see myself.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, he just says it. He just says it. And then what they embody, Holiday, after provoking him a couple times, then does a little gun twirling show.
Let's see if
not Holiday. Ringo does a gun twirling show.
This is where they establish they're both educated. Yeah. Mix and match, baby.
Aje coragis. Creda Judaea Sotella non ego.
That to the Jew of Sotella, not me. It's strange phrases they're picking, I thought. Maybe not.
Do you recognize them? See, despite my love for the film, I've never gone so far as to like figure out what they were saying to each other.
Yeah, I don't know why it tugged at me, but yeah.
Come on, boys. We don't want any trouble in here, not in any language.
No, we don't.
Peacekeeper
That's
Bob.
Latin, darling. Evidently, Mr. Ringo's an educated man.
Now
That's
I'm
right
sure
after
of
this.
it.
Now I really hate him, and that does
No,
it.
I'm sure I hate it. I don't know if I let it go.
Fumble.
That, of course not.
I ran across this morning.
I ran the ball. But yeah. So that's the scene where they meet.
The juxtaposition that interests me there is what Ringo does for a killer, for a cold killer, is absurd, because he does a gun twirling show. And then to emphasize that, what Holiday does in response after the crowd dies down, giving what I took to be kind of false whoops and because they're terrified of the guy. I think they're kind of applaud. Have you ever been in the room where there's a very, very dangerous person and the vibe kind of changes and everyone's kind of...
Well, there was both, because like all of his friends from all the other cowboys were there too.
Yeah.
So a lot of those hoots and hollers were genuine. That's my boy showing off.
I think they're scared of him too, but you might be right.
Oh, they would be foolish not to be, even in his crew, in his crew. Yeah.
But then what does
Then
Holiday do?
his twirl. Let me see if I can grab it.
If it doesn't,
I have a style.
Spoiler alert, he has a whiskey cup that has a little ring on it suitable for his finger, and he mimics the same thing back with his whiskey cup.
No, I cannot find it.
But the juxtaposition of those two, it reminds me of like the guy in a boxing gym that let me show you how tough I am, and then goes and works the speed bag really well. Meanwhile, that has nothing to do with fighting. It's conditioning for holding your shoulders up. It's not.
I'm gonna be able to. I'll be able to. Maybe that's a good. That's a piece of advice that may result in a speed bag in this house now.
It's fun. It's good for agility and reflexes. It doesn't teach you to fight them. That's the only thing
So,
about it.
but I don't know that I went into well enough how the difference between that view of friendship made all the difference in character for Doc Holliday. Just that little piece of love, which is God, which is Christ, is the whore Christ, is the I. He had his eye in the place of being the right man for his friend, despite his own. Like that's the one redeeming quality, right?
Yeah, there's a later scene where he's really bad off. He's at death's door. And they're
From the tuberculosis in his lungs.
from the tuberculosis, exactly. And some other ex-cowboys they're now in open war with the cowboys, and they ask Doc, because he's barely surviving. He's like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you putting your life on the line?" And Doc says, Wyatt Earp is my friend. And then I think it was Turkey Creek, the other cowboy, that says, "Well, I got lots of friends." Doc just goes, "I don't."
Right? Because it's hard to maintain friendships while you destroy yourself, oddly enough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that movie is that's rich. I think that movie is. Did you see it in the theater when you saw it? If it was in the 90s, it might have been in the theater.
I remember it first and foremost in a friend's house.
Hmm.
Like a thing me and my friends shared.
VHS tape
Probably.
in the 90s.
Probably. Yeah. That sounds about. I think it was 91 the thing came out. But, do you...
And I never saw the Kevin Costner one. There's another.
That's not bad. It's different, though. It's a different one. What do you think about the way that we're mapping our thoughts toward the Westerns and the pioneers and that sort of thing in this corner to address the way that we have to cope with the flood of information that is the interwebs?
Makes perfect sense. Immediate resonance for me, anyway. my hunch is that's true for a lot of people. These are, I mean, they're modern myths. They're going to have archetypes that resonate with people. I think it makes a lot of sense. That it's not everyone's going to immediately resonate with Joseph Campbell and A Hero's Journey, but whether they know it or not, it fits for what Wyatt went through in the movie.
I'm glad you indicated knowledge of the hero's journey. It was stumbling through my mind earlier today, particularly like when we reference the hero's journey, people will naturally come at it from the view of the ego self, right? And like, okay, so I'm the hero.
Yeah, that's tempting.
But what had occurred to me is how much we're the village for each other. And like, if you don't mind, would you run me through your understanding of the hero's journey?
I would love to. I really can't. I would be attributed knowledge. It's more like awareness of it. U-shaped story. That's about as far. It's very low res mine. So
well,
I can disappoint you there.
There's this fascinating part where, like, this is just my rough recollection of it, so I'm sure it's full of holes, and maybe I've developed a comment section that'll lay it out properly. We'll see. I don't know how many of those people have come over from Paul, but it's the first part is the call to adventure, and then there's the refusal and whatever. But at some point, the hero goes off and does the adventuring, and comes back with something for the village.
Right.
And it reintegrates into the village. And I think to the extent that we are on this whatever quest we're doing here together, that's sort of what Paul did today on when he brought forth what he found from the conversation for King's North Holland, Tom Holland and Paul Kingsnorth.
Yeah.
Like, here's the gold I found in that conversation. You go see the rest yourself. And that's sort of, we're all here in this place sort of doing that together. And we make these little villages around the channels where we get to share those pieces, is what it's looking like to me.
Yeah, if that's your goal, or that's among your goals, I think you're pulling it off. For me, that's what it seems like. Go
ahead.
Oh, you better finish, because maybe I was going to take it in a different direction.
No, I was just going to ask if you were familiar with the Deadwood Dandies thing we're doing.
I'm not.
Okay, on Thursdays, we're walking through the HBO series Deadwood together for this reason of establishing the internal shared mythology. And I think in season 2, the Telegraph comes in, so it's tying into everything else that's going on beautifully. But like, with your admiration of Tombstone, for you not to be aware of it, I wanted to point it out that we are doing that on Thursdays. If you'd like to join us, it's we're doing it at 8 Central right now with discussion in the Discord.
I haven't seen Deadwood. I've heard it's good.
Legendary. Ian McShane, if no one else, makes it legendary. But that's where I was going to take it. Where were you going to go?
Well, I was going to fumble a bit, because in this, or fumble around a bit, so much talk of myth and meaning, and meaning in particular, heavy in this corner. I'm surprised, maybe I'm not surprised though, that Claude Lévi-Strauss hasn't come up more in discussion. Are you familiar with Claude Lévi-Strauss? So this is a
Lévi-Strauss,
spelled like the blue jeans. So it makes me want to say Levi.
Like Levi Strauss?
Yeah, like you want to say Levi Strauss, but if you got enough French in your head, you say Claude Lévi-Strauss instead.
Lévi-Strauss. Okay, I can do that.
He only passed away in about the last 10 years. I think in the early 2000s he passed away. But so this cat is the father of structuralism, and this guy went so far in 1955. he published the Structural Interpretation of Myth. I think it's called that in the English translations, Structural Interpretation of Myth. He put out what you can just, for shorthand, you can just think of it as an algebra formula for understanding. His assertion is this is how all myths work. And it's object, object, function, function, and then they're laid out in a sort of analogy with a twist on the end where the object from the one becomes the function in the second. And my hope was to go that way with this, and it didn't work out.
It's interesting. Let's take that. Do you think that the functions map to ways we can imagine ourselves and our roles in these Discord submarines and YouTube ships?
My intuition says yes, but I haven't figured it out. And I guess to answer, I might have to go a very long way around. Levi-Strauss described that the function of myth was to resolve binary oppositions that we couldn't resolve any other way.
Binary oppositions. Like,
so for instance,
it's how opponent processing processes.
Oh yeah. I hadn't put that together, but yeah.
That would make it a map of the intersections of the Dreamcatcher of optimal grip. So
optimal grip, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, his examples, life, death, and then a common archetype in myths will be things like the raven. And he'll say that the way that transition goes is, all right, we have life and death, but in the same way as a dream works, maybe there'll be a substitution where instead of life and death, which are difficult to reconcile because they're opposite, you'll have agriculture in the place of life, and you'll have farming. No, that is agriculture. You'll have agriculture and hunting. And then you'll have, as another substitution, you'll have a carnivorous prey animal, and you'll have an herbivore, and in the middle you'll have a trickster. You'll have something that eats meat, but only dead meat, and that'll be the raven. And that's his attempt at an explanation of why the raven shows up in Asia and Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and in North America as a trickster figure in all the myths. But then I lost thread.
Yeah. It's a tough one to hold on to. I like it though. I like it. So it says most myths or all myths is the claim, will map setting as to life and death, and you can look for the boundary representatives for that, like containing structure of the opponent processing.
Yes, but life and death is just an example. There might be other binary oppositions. In his paper, I never really understood. I couldn't, even in his paper where he laid the formula out, I couldn't map out. He did the Oedipus myth. And so he has, okay, you're marrying your sister here, so you're overvaluing blood relation, but you're killing your dad here, so you're undervaluing blood relations. And then he says what that myth is all about is the tension that ancient people had between that word is autochthonous. That means you think an origin of man as having like grown out of the ground. So this ancient idea that man is from
made of dust
versus the way that we all know that people come from. And so the myth somehow reconciles those two. But any binary opposite doesn't have to be life, death. It can be autochthony and whatever the opposite of fucking autochthony is.
Divine intervention, I guess.
Yeah. So
what's it like here now? I mean, you seem pretty normal, and if you come into like YouTube is always what it has been. Like I go when I watch videos there, or I go and I watch live streams there.
Yeah.
Does it feel like you've stumbled onto something else around here, or is that a delusion in my head that we
No,
have
it's
something
well,
else going?
it might be delusion that we both share. I mean, it feels like that to me. I mean, most of my YouTubing, I'll have it on. I'm many years off from retirement, so I don't listen during the day very much. I'll have it on in the morning, if I go for a run or something like that. Maybe I'll watch a little more closely on a weekend if I have a free hour or something like that. Although, you know, one thing that you said that properly got under my skin early in a good way was community involvement. I think the observation you made was people rant and rave about like national politics. Maybe they don't really know their own mayor. And I was like, my excuse was we had just moved to this town. But it's like, fuck, that's true.
It's getting
Getting more involved locally and staying more involved locally, I think, is important.
as a cautionary tale, I get to be very hypocritical about such things. But to me, it's important to show people that this rage tweeting, for example, about politicians and stuff that are presented to you through the set as things for you to pay attention to. It's scratching your itch for participating, but that's not what actual participation looks like. And to the extent you're separated from your locus of agentic capacity, to the extent your attention is separated from your locus of agentic capacity, then you're distracted. You're like, there's people that are going to take advantage of your abdication of attention. And I think that's a lot of how we've gotten here. But that's also why I think that us coming together in this way, in this weird place, this subversion, dealing with the machine maybe, we're in a room of requirement situation.
The room of requirement from Harry Potter, where they train against the dark.
Like when they realize that the defense against the dark arts class they're getting is corrupted, we're like, well, we're going to have to learn this stuff ourselves.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is what this is shaping toward us. Because
You've gotten to see already people getting together in the real world. You're about to have another event.
That's going to be
How does that
fun.
feel?
The responsibility that you're in charge of the camp. But it's keeping me. That's an anchor that's keeping me focused for it. Now I'm very excited. Like, there's gonna be some 4 of us are gonna play some lame song, as the signs and wonders under the stars on Earth together, and that's making home. It's gonna be good. I'm very excited. You can find the links in the description to buy your tickets if they're not sold out yet, including Paintball for Jesus, where I may or may not be crucified. Still very up in the air. Very up in the air on this one. But
Have you opened that subject? I'll stay away from it.
no, they want reasons we're going to do it like in an essay form. And right now it's paused because I haven't written that essay. It's like, maybe I will. Maybe I will. I mean,
You could get all ironical and have Chat GPT write it for you.
it's just that I can have other, what do you call it? There are other initiations into my manhood of my 50s I can partake in. I don't know that we need to establish a new ritual. But I'd like to. Because, I don't know, it'll help me sell the book one day.
Is it the ritual? I mean, so you wrote God Mask. I think that drew some inspiration from Joseph Campbell at like a talk that he gave, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it's what I think we're missing is an initiation ritual, and it was my stab at a replacement one.
Yeah, and that's is that also what you're going for with the idea of the first time I heard you say it, I thought you were kidding. I'll be on a cross and you can shoot me with, and then
I think
became
so.
clear that you were serious about it. And then I emailed you.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know why it occurred to me to do it. In my understanding, in the story version, in the book version of Paintball for Jesus, the one where the God mask is the first piece that actually got written from. The part that precedes the God mask part, that's part of the ritual that happens in this Paintball for Jesus group. And there's this great part where like his friend has to kiss him on the cheek before they string him up on the cross and shoot him with paintballs. But we're so disembodied, so very, very disembodied, so in our head, and like there's people. It seems that this wasn't the case in, say, the 1940s through the 1970s, but it seems after that, pretty much most people were able to go through life without getting punched in the face. Like the physical had retracted that far that people can go through without that. And so for me, having this physical, visceral of a thing be part of the awakening to responsibility process is, I think it's a good one. I don't know that I think there needs to be one, and it's a good one. I don't know if it's the best one.
What about as a kid? Do you remember, like when you were in grade school or even junior high, did you get punched in the face then, or did anyone try? Maybe you were scrappy. I don't know.
I instigated a fight with a friend of mine named Jack after school one day, probably 5th or 6th grade, probably 6th, because I had never been in a fight. And when the actual opportunity to be in a fight occurred on the playground around the same time, I think it was afterward that I arranged the fight with Jack. But what had happened on the playground is like the dude had provoked me to the point of wanting to fight and was ready to, but my fear of the authority and the trouble I'd get into for fighting kept me frozen from fighting. And but yeah, no, I haven't been in an actual, like, maybe we'll kill each other fight to this day.
Yeah, they're not good ideas. I mean, especially as adults. I mean, the fights are dangerous.
Permanently damaging. I mean,
They can be.
Actual risk involved.
Yeah.
Brain capacity. And
I'm not talking about being assertive. I'm talking about when push comes to shove, and especially if there's groups. It's nothing I recommend. There's nothing very romantic about fighting. But so in that like schoolyard or after school fight, was it one of the childhood fights that I remember? Wrestling, more about wrestling than punching.
Yeah.
Were you punching?
It got to the point where he was on top of me punching, and then I did the fancy, like, bring up my legs from behind to wrap around his throat and pull him off of me move.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, I think it got broken up thereafter, but there was no emotion in it, really. We didn't actually hate each other, so it wasn't much of a fight, really.
You invented jiu-jitsu, I guess. That's what you're telling me.
Is that the secret of jiu-jitsu? How to fight without really fighting?
There is a move where you throw your legs over.
Oh, that, yeah. But I don't know. It seems to me we're cattle mainly, tax cattle, and we can be more, but
it never felt more like that to me in my life than the years I spent working in Chicago and getting off the train at Union Station. And boy, if you want to feel like a cow,
Just a blood vessel in the stream, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a capillary right there, man. Yeah.
So, but
Especially on the rainy days because you're subterranean when you get off the train, but the street overhead, it's vented, so the water drips down, and it's almost like the city's pissing on you as you're walking to work. That's how it felt. Sounds like I'm complaining. I mean, it could have been worse. There were nice jobs and usually nice people I was going to see, but that was an odd feeling being packed in like that.
I have a lot of hope for people feeling that right now because it seems to me if we stop panicking for a minute, we have the opportunity to revivify main streets in these rural wonderlands because like they're dried up and dead. I mean, the system is being designed so you never have to leave your little box. The drones will bring you everything you need, and that's, I think, if there's going to be a counter push to that, it's going to be people fleeing the cities. But now that we have internet, there's no reason that the good fiber lines can't. There's no reason for you to be in the cities for the most part anymore. Between automated factories, so I think we have a real opportunity to maybe grow our own food again locally.
Have you done that? I saw you interviewed a guy that knew about that, like composting. I think he knew about a bunch of other stuff, but that was.
He runs a biodynamic farm. It's all fancy. I just got a backyard over here. I got.
Are you growing in that?
I've grown some plants. Strawberries came out all right. We'll see what happens this year. It's about. I should plant before it's too late now, I guess. But I have grown plants before to fruition.
That's good. I've just gotten excited about plants for the first time since we moved down here we're in Central Florida, and my wife's really into plants and flowers. So we got lemon trees, and looking over there, you can't see it, but I promise there's a lemon tree out there and palm trees and things like that. But we can't eat the palm trees, but you can actually eat the lemons. It's pretty good.
I'd take advantage of the fish if I were where you're at. Like here in Oklahoma, sure, it's frozen and flown in and perfectly safe, but they know it's those stuff they're flying to Oklahoma too. I got all this stuff. Which one are you going to send to Oklahoma? That one. And so, but
what's Main Street like in your town?
I think,
or I'm guessing there is one. I don't know what your town is like.
Well, yeah, there was a courthouse. I think they've moved it, and it's the intersection of two highways. And this is a bigger town in the rural landscape because it has the Air Force Base to feed off of. So it's like the hub for probably 14 or 15 actual small towns. But there's no reason for anyone to be downtown anymore. There's reason for people to be at Walmart, which is on the other end of town. I think one of there's a couple pawn shops there, a law office, a hearing aid place, and
you say it's rural. Like, do the farmers come out and do a farmers market on the weekend, or that can be a nice reason to be downtown?
There are a couple events throughout the course of the year. The Cotton Picking Chili Bowl is one of my particular favorites, but it's just. I drive around a lot. I love to travel. The road is what I miss the most. And when you go through all these towns, like the ones that are only a main street, maybe one stoplight, all of those buildings are dead. And I don't know, we have beautiful stars out here. And I think a lot of people that, like, if they're going to make you remote work anyway, why not come place where you can have land and whatnot for that ridiculous city salary? And I think there's a lot of potential there, but we have a whole lot going on with as far as may you live in interesting times, right?
Yeah, for sure. the stars. That we're close enough. If we drive one direction, we can get some good.
Sky.
Yeah, no light pollution. We're close enough to Orlando. We're 20 miles from Disney World that there is a bit of that.
Just a glow for
Yeah,
miles. Yeah.
a little bit of that wash. In terms of like using the main street, so the thoughts that came to mind were like, I can't remember, I'd forgotten something. So farmers market, you said that happens sometimes. Oh, vibe of the town. So, or maybe any of the towns that you mentioned that have small main streets and intersection only downtowns. Do people wave? If you drive and you wave, just put your hand up. You don't know them, and they wave back.
You get the steering wheel finger down
Yeah.
most of the streets. Yeah.
It's all right.
That's quite a bit actually.
Well,
But that's
have you been
that's
places
in
where you
mine.
can't?
So
Have you been places where you don't get that?
yeah, like
That's where you
downtown
start
Portland.
Oh yeah,
You know,
really?
that didn't really happen. When the more people you get, the less waving there is, as far as I can tell.
That's been my experience with some exceptions, but yeah. Milwaukee is not a small town, but you'll get that anywhere in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's weird. It's kind of cool because it's a city, but people still they wave.
I would guess it's more probable in places where it gets cold.
Oh,
Where, like, if I'm not friendly enough, I might freeze to death. You know?
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'll have to think about that.
All right, well, we've had a conversation, Josh. Do you want to take it anywhere?
We did that. No, I didn't come in with any goal. I have this long-reaching goal. Eventually, I'm going to map that Claude Lévi-Strauss formula onto something, and it was not this, but
Well, if you apparently avoid the Discord, and I don't blame anybody who does that, thanks to the involvement with Tencent. But if you feed me an email with it, I'll drop it in the Discord and see if anybody bites.
right
And,
on.
It's good to have respectable people around. So thank you for bringing me some credibility in that direction.
Well, thank God I bought a shirt today.
I know, with the collar and shit. It's fancy, man. All right,
Zoom
thanks, Josh.
Later, Gator.
Where's the? There it is.